our Christmases were like anyone else's. Everybody'd get up together, have breakfast, and do the presents and all that, and then football. So it,
Yeah.
it was all pretty much the same. But we had, the old when I was like, I don't know, 16. My favorite memory is we because they had a home in Joplin, Missouri too, and so uh, and there was one day, I think it was Christmas Eve, and Dad, he got me and he said, "Come on," he goes, because I'd been wanting some cowboy boots, and he said, "I know a place in town." So I said, "All right," so just me and him went. He got me the cowboy boots and stuff, and then after we had been at the cowboy store getting the boots and whatever else we got, I can't remember, but um, he said, "Come on, I want you to." I was driving. He said, "Let me show you some places that we used to, you know, go to back back when they were, in the 50s and stuff." And so I said, "Sure, that'd be great." I mean, it thrilled me to death. So it was so weird and crazy, but it made me feel so good to see him, how happy he was to go into these places, not just because we were having drinks or whatever. It was everyone in there knew who he was, and some of the people that used to work there way back were still there. You know, and you could just tell my dad enjoyed it so much because these people, you know, I guess they were like Mick, like him, and so he just hit it off with everybody, and so, but it was just meant a lot to me to see, where he came from, meet these people, hear their stories, hear his stories to them, and it was just, you know, that's my favorite Christmas story with my dad.
That's a beautiful one. And you know what? It's fitting in a way because Mickey was so inherently generous. He was like a Santa Claus himself. You told me a story about it was around Christmas time, and there's somebody that's poor, does not have the wherewithal of the or the money, with two flat tires. Danny, just pick up the story briefly from there.
Well, this is a story of my oldest brother, Mickey Jr. Um, I wish he was here to tell it, but him and Dad had gone out, and I believe it was Christmas Eve. And anyway, they were down near our house where we all grew up, and there's a service station there. Dad needed gas. He pulls in. Well, there's a man there with, I believe it was either one or two kids with him, and Dad could tell something was going on, and the car had two flats. Well, I don't know if he had Mickey Jr. with him in the store or not, or Mickey Jr. walked in. Anyway, my brother said that he heard my dad telling the attendant, because the man didn't have the money to get the two tires fixed. He had presents in his car. They were obviously going to somewhere for their Christmas, right?
Yep.
And he couldn't afford to get the tires. Dad gave the guy like $200 and said, "You put two tires on that guy's car, he's got to get home for Christmas." And my brother Mickey, for some reason that just hit my brother so hard, and he thought about that all the time. But I'm probably missing some of the story, but he could tell it so good. And those are stories that people don't know about Mickey Mantle. He was such a giving person, and like Billy, Whitey, all those guys. I mean, they'd give the shirt off their back.
Yeah.
And it's just,
That
that,
sums it up. That's sums up Mickey. That's a beautiful story, and we've heard that many many times about his generosity.
yeah,
So it's just something that is so special
yeah,
about him.
yeah.
Um, Billy, um, this one's a little tougher for me to talk about. I can only imagine you. When I think of Christmas, we all think, as Yankee fans, we all remember your dad's passing, and I started crying when I heard the story. And I can tell you this: that I share a little bit with you when you and your family got that shocking phone call where your dad passed. Same thing happened to me when I was a 10-year-old boy. You get the call that nobody wants, whether you're a parent or a child, where you're hearing on the other end that, as a 10-year-old kid, I'm finding out that my father died. And you get that call, and it's so shocking to you. And Billy, when you think about, there's never a time that a good time or anything like that, but when you think about your dad passing on Christmas Eve, I cried, and the entire Yankee universe cried, and we shared your pain. We just want to let you know that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was obviously a tough moment. I was with my mother and her now husband sharing Christmas, and we I was flying out to see Dad the next day. Well, this was pre-cell phone days, so we weren't watching TV. Um, People were trying to call me at my house, but I wasn't at my house. I was at my mother's house. I didn't find out for a couple hours actually. And like I say, I was flying out to see Dad the next day. It's obviously tainted Christmas to some degree for me, but having kids and seeing the joy in their eyes on Christmas morning kind of has helped bring all that back. Um, I
Well,
It never just goes away. You don't just wake up one day and go, great, I'm over it now. You know that. You were 10 years old. You still miss your dad, right?
that's right.
I still talk to him, but
Yeah,
as New Yorkers would say, it is what it is.
yeah.
I love the story Billy told me about. I mean, it's not a funny story or anything, but at Billy's funeral, um, Billy Jr. kind of broke down, and he said a guy kind of helped him up a little bit by the shoulders,
Mm.
and I'm not sure how he did it, but I guess he kind of said it to Billy. I don't know. You didn't know who it was, did you, Billy?
No, not in that moment. He grabbed me under my armpit, kind of straightened me up.
Were you like on your knees or something, or?
No, I was just starting to convulse in tears.
Okay.
I had to follow my father's, you
Yeah,
know,
I
you
know.
know, the procession outside,
Yeah.
and I started to lose it. And somebody grabbed me and lifted me up and said, "Walk outside with me and look at how many people loved your father." And
To me, that's a great story because as Billy tells it, he tells it excellent, but to have Richard Nixon, telling you that about your father had to be just so, you know, even, it's a sad as hell event. And to have something like that, that had to at least get you through the rest. You know what I mean? I don't know, but
oh, it was very special. It was
yeah,
We walked outside and you couldn't even see the sidewalks in New York City because there were so many people and they were holding signs, and there were signs with a number 1 with a halo on top of it. And "We loved you, Billy," and you know Yankee forever, and all these signs and people everywhere. And it overwhelmed me, and it helped me catch my snap. And that's when I looked over and realized it was Richard Nixon that did that. And uh, it meant a lot. And then we got in the limo, and I'm with my father's wife and my sister, my half sister Kelly, and my father's driver Tex, who was a former New York cop who drove him everywhere and always kept him out of trouble. and he turned on the radio to the only country western station in New York at the time. And he turned it on and the radio went dead. There was air silence for a good 30, 40 seconds, which meant somebody probably got fired, right? Because that's not supposed to happen in New York City. And then a song came on by Clint Black that I'd never heard before. And the title of the song is Leaving Here a Better Man. And it starts off, what do you say when it's over? And ironically, the song's about a lost relationship, but it obviously has different meaning for me. And that was a great moment.